Politico with a big piece today. They were quite proud of this one. It's like, scoop. I'm sorry. This is just gossip. How is this gossip and this rather, well, questionable language? Like, how is that in any way a story? Well, at Politico, they're really proud of this one because apparently, behind the scenes, President Biden says some really bad stuff about Donald Trump, calling him, well, some bad words. So, of course, MSNBC goes all in. Of course, Michael still has to get his say. I'm telling you guys, pay attention to this because they are normalizing this. This is part of their goal. What did I tell you in terms of J6, et cetera, just yesterday? You think about how they shot all the footage, and then they brought in one of their own, a former ABC producer, a former Disney-owned ABC producer, to create a quote-unquote mini-series, and they admitted it. By the way, we knew that already. Some of you had said, oh, Trish, we knew that. Of course we knew that. But the point is, they are out there patting themselves on the back, doing their little PBS documentary saying, aren't we great? We created the narrative we wanted. That's what they're doing. They're creating a narrative, okay? So watch this.
I want to dig in, Michael, if I can, to today's reporting from Jonathan Lemire, because it does show a level of personal animosity. Quote, the president has described Trump to longtime friends and close aides as a sick, expletive, who delights in others' misfortunes, according to 3 people who have heard the president use the profane description. According to one of the people who has spoken with the president, Biden recently said of Trump, what another expletive guy. Right. Candidates who don't like each other isn't anything new. We can agree on that. But this is very personal and very deep. And I wonder, against an opponent for whom there have never been any boundaries, right, with right. Donald Trump, could channeling this anger actually help Joe Biden?
Look, there are 2 things to take away from this reporting by Jonathan. The first is this was a conversation he had with private friends, among friends. He wasn't standing at a podium, as we've seen Donald Trump do in recent weeks, and profanely describe others and aspects of this election. So that's one. Number 2, Donald Trump is given credit and props for speaking for MAGA. Well, guess what? Joe Biden speaks for the rest of us. So I don't have a problem with that characterization because I think it's accurate.
Does not have a problem with that characterization.
And so the fact that the president feels this way, I think is a reflection of how a lot of Americans feel. And he speaks for a lot of Americans in that regard. So
and he's also dying in the polls. I knew what you thought I was going to say, right? Oh, he's been plunging in the polls, except for this Quinnipiac one, which is why this VP thing, which we're going to get to in a second. I just want to see what you guys are saying. A lot of different names out there. I've got some intel that I want to share with you. I do believe that this list has just been narrowed rather considerably, and there are some top contenders. But they're gonna. This is gonna go around for a little bit. So I am curious to hear your thoughts, but I'm going to share with you some of what I'm hearing from some pretty intelligent people that really have thought about this and have thought about how he best has a path to the White House. But you hear Michael Steele, you hear this lady. So this is an ex-Clinton aide, and she went on to MSNBC. Of course, where else do they go? Where else would you go, ladies and gentlemen? But the state news network for Joe Biden, ex-Clinton aide saying some also rather bad things about former President Trump.
Ronna McDaniel getting on air to be like, you need to drop out. There was a move for a resolution, like not even pretending any neutrality. And of course, again, this is the vision that he has for all politics. Like that, yes, I win, heads I win, tails you lose.
Absolutely. You can see how he has reshaped just about every aspect of the electoral system. The voters are different now. Yep. The local officials are different now. The candidates are different now. But almost nowhere is it more stark than in the party apparatus itself. And it's for the exact point that you and Sarah have both made. If you make your litmus test absolute fealty to an unhinged racist weirdo, guess what kind of people you get? That's what's stacked top to bottom now. And at some point, I usually chafe when we're like, Donald Trump is so new and different.
They're normalizing this language. You can call him all the bad words that Biden apparently has been calling him behind closed doors at the White House. Really? All right. It frankly doesn't surprise me. Hence, Politico, woo, way to go on your super stellar reporting on that one. And then you got this lady out there saying he's a racist weirdo. I mean, they're normalizing it. They're normalizing it. And they are desperately trying to convince everybody that he is that bad and he's that awful that you can't possibly vote for him. I mean, it feels very reminiscent, shall we say, of 2020 when we had one guy sitting in his basement, never really saying much other than, oh, I'm such a nice guy. And everybody on the leftist media side of the aisle was just like, bad, 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 bad. We hate him, we hate him, we hate him. And they sold you, frankly, just on this idea. When I say, yeah, I don't mean all of you, but they sold those that voted for Joe Biden on this idea somehow that he was just a nice guy. And they're going to play this playbook all over again. Mark my words. Mark my words. I mean, this is exactly what's happening, which is why you have these ladies on The View talking this kind of you-know-what.
Welcome back. As you know, politics have always been a hot topic for comedians. But former Tonight Show host Jay Leno recently talked to Piers Morgan about why he's dropped political humor from his set list. Take a look.
When I did the Tonight Show, the idea was you made fun of both sides equally, and you get those, Miss Leno, you and your Republican friends, well, Miss Leno, you and your Democratic buddies, and they'd both be angry. And I go, oh, that's good. They both think you're supporting the other guy. Now you've got to take a side, and people are angry if you don't. And I find what I would start to tell a political joke. Well, they want to know the punchline before, is this pro or against it? So I just stopped doing it. Really? Because I just want people to come and laugh and have a good time.
Well, so the question is, has America lost its sense of humor about politics?
Well, the job of the comedian is to speak truth to power, which is, that's what Jay was doing, that's what Letterman did, and that's what we did, you and I, when we were doing stand-up. Having said that, I mean, Trump is a perfect target for humor because he's so stupid. And the guy looks at the eclipse and they tell him don't do that, and he does exactly that. It could have blinded him. He believes Frederick Douglass is alive. He has no information at all. He's really an incredible target for humor. Having said that, he is one of the most dangerous people of my lifetime to ever be in the Oval Office. Right. He is probably the most dangerous. Right. So you have somebody like, and he doesn't have a good sense of humor. No, we all know that at the Correspondents' Dinner, when President Obama made a joke about him,
that was the beginning of the end.
His skin is thinner than his hair. Yeah. And he got so pissed off that he had to run for president and go after poor Obama, who was born in this country. He is a menace.
Welcome back. As you know, politics have always been a hot topic for comedians.
They're really doing everything they can to say how bad he is. By the way, I'm just reminded as I watch them, I'm wondering if this lady, right, that we just saw,
getting on air to be like, you need to drop out. There was a move for a resolution. Not even pretending any neutrality. And of course, again, this is the vision that he has for
Rachel
all
got
politics.
rid of the glasses, right?
Yes, I win, heads I win, tails you lose.
Absolutely. You can see how he has reshaped just about every aspect of the electoral system. The voters are different now. The local officials are different now. The candidates are different now. But almost nowhere is it more stark than in the party apparatus itself. And it's for the exact point that you and Sarah have both made. If you make your litmus test absolute fealty to an unhinged racist weirdo, guess what kind of people
you know what? I think they might hire you, lady. I think you might actually get a job on The View. But more importantly, for the rest of the world that's not living in TV land and doesn't care about getting a job on The View, but actually cares about maybe having lower energy prices, having a safer border, having a safer world, having a strong economy, etc. You know what? For everybody else out there, there's some other things going on. And we need to remember this, because when I say that they're gonna pick a narrative and they're gonna stay with it, I want you to remember this is all they did in 2016. Hillary Clinton lost. Donald Trump won. But they couldn't let it go. You remember? I remember. It was Russia, 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 Russia. He stole the election because of Russia. He's not my president. He's not a legitimate president. Heck, you even had, I've played you this before, you've even had the former president of the United States, none other than Jimmy Carter, say he was not a legitimate president. Remember?
There's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in the election, and I think the interference, although not yet quantified, if fully investigated, would show that Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract, I'll tell you. There's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in the election.
They loved it. They're laughing. They're
And
laughing.
I think
they're
the
laughing.
interference,
The
although not
reason
yet
they are
quantified,
laughing, think about it. The reason they're laughing is because he just said what they all wanted him to say. He's not a legitimate president. So Jimmy Carter says it. They run with it. They run with it for the next 4 years. The next 4 years. Think about that. I mean, they're trying to say, oh, you know, it was Trump that like stood in the way of. I have a feeling, just a little feeling, the same thing would have happened if the balance had been tipped, even just slightly in Donald Trump's favor. I mean, heck, don't take my word for it. Take Hillary Clinton's. It's exactly what they were planning to do.
You know, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances because I think this is going to drag out. And eventually, I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch and if we are as focused and relentless as the other side is.
Okay.
Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
This is the problem. This is the entire problem with all of them. They are digging in, but only one side gets to dig in. Right? If you're a conservative, you have no say. Heck, you know, you get the nation's largest bank CEO, Jamie Dimon, having to come out of Davos, Switzerland, and tell all those elites at the World Economic Forum, hey, you can't count out half of the country. You can't try and paint half the country as just awful people. And that's exactly what they're doing, and they're trying to normalize it, and they're going to try and intimidate, and they're going to do everything they can to therefore get everybody to vote for the nice guy that, you know, look, I mean, you've seen the news out in the Middle East. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think he's nice, but let's just pretend he was. The nice guy can't get the job done. He just can't. That's the reality of it. But we heard over and over again. I mean, heck, even, you know, here's Donna Brazil talking about how President Trump, when he won, did not win legitimately, that it wasn't a legitimate presidency. You want to talk about who was, quote unquote, undoing democracy. And I know we're representative republic, et cetera, but just go with their language for a second because they were doing it to themselves.
Government in our election process.
And Donna, given that all you've said about this hack, do you think Donald Trump's win was legitimate?
You know, I was involved in a close election in 2000, and it was an election where we believed that every vote should count and every voter should matter. At the end of the day, the electors had an obligation to do their job, and George Bush won the election, and Al Gore had the most the most popular votes. Donald Trump used this information in ways to also sow division. I was very disappointed, and I'm
going to stop this for a second. Do you see what we call in the television business the lower third on the bottom of the screen, the writing that says the Russian hack? Did Russian hacking give Trump the White House win? I mean, wow! Like that's what they were putting out there, almost as though to inspire this idea that somehow they had broken into the Diebold voting machines. I mean, gosh, it's like deja vu, right? Like, I mean, I'm sorry. It's right out of their playbook. And yet they get to do it. Nobody else can.